This episode is sponsored in part by PTZ Optics. Why hire a camera operator when the control is in your hands? Visit ptzoptics.com for more information. And by NewTek, makers of the TriCaster TC1. Stun your viewers, not your accountant. Visit newtek.com for more information.
All right, guys, welcome to another Thursday edition of Creators Corner. I am Stephen Haywood, and we have a very, very special guest today. In fact, my guest today is very well known for his, not just collection, but he's also well known for what he did in the past. He started his video game journey in the 80s when his cousin sat him down in front of an old TV and played him in Atari Super Football. I don't even know if I ever played Atari Super Football. And since that day, a love of all forms of interactive entertainment has been his primary obsession. Hours upon hours of playing Mega Man 2 and Earthbound eventually led him to work in the gaming industry for the better part of a decade on titles like NCAA Football, 2004, Mirror's Edge, and Henry Hatsworth in The Puzzling Adventure. In 2019, Jay used that lifelong love of video games to launch the YouTube channel called Square Pegs, dedicated to the best in retro and modern video games. With a love of the Sega Genesis, Nintendo GameCube, and Nintendo 3DS as his favorite consoles, Jay dives into the world and the wide variety of subjects from platformers to sports. His sincere desire is that we all play more games and stay square. Jay, welcome. Welcome to the show. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Well, it's great to have you on here. You have quite the resume. When I've been researching you and your previous life and even kind of what you do now, you've given more to this industry than you've taken. Let's just say that, right?
I'll let you say that. I don't necessarily agree with that. I've gotten quite a bit out of the industry from what I put into it. So
Well, I think you're being modest. I look at a lot of game developers and they help to shape, the video game space that we're in. So that's awesome. Like I said, I'm glad that you were able to get on here. I'm glad. I've been following your sports obsession if in recent weeks of I'm a hockey fan as well.
love it,
So to see
love it.
you getting a lot of those hockey games and picking those up, I'm like, dang man, he's literally collecting the games that nobody wants. Nobody wants these sports games. So
Hey, I am happy to go to a store and walk out with 30 games and spend $18. I think it's fantastic. Um, no, I've loved sports games since I was a kid. Like I remember like one of my first obsessions was Blades of Steel. I've been a hockey fan my whole life, so um, Blades of Steel was one of those first games that I remember playing it, and the digitized voice in the game absolutely blew my mind. It was something I'd ever heard before. So being able to play my favorite sport with this cool, crazy robot voice talking about the game as I was playing was just like that was one of those like instant highs as a kid of playing games, and sports games have just carried me forward since then. I love them, and no one wants them. I do. I'll take them all.
and some of the like I know a lot of when the Sega Sports started coming out, like I was a really big fan of the Sega Sports football games as well.
Yep.
But NHL hockey, I recently just bought I think the latest one, 22 or 23, whatever one came out.
Mhm.
And I actually had to go back to the old way of how you control things because they made it difficult to pass the puck. And I'm like, yeah, no, we're going old school. We're going to play this the way it's supposed to be played, right?
Yeah, those classic Genesis controls are a classic for a reason. Like they just work, and it's the fact that I can hop into a modern day NHL game and still rock those classic controls, and it still plays just buttery smooth is such a testament to those old games, man. It's so much fun.
I see your partner in crime has joined us here in the chat room. He's making sure you don't say anything that's going to cramp him a
Yeah,
little bit.
yeah. I heard him last week. We'll get to him later. We'll get to him later.
Well, I appreciate everybody, like I said, tuning in here in the main chat room. Listen, as we do every week, you're free to put in a question if it pertains to a subject that we're talking about at that particular moment. If not, wait until the end. We usually do the last 15, 20 minutes or so of questions, and you can ask Jay whatever he wants, whatever you want, whatever Game Dad, whatever. You guys decide what you want to do. But we're happy to do that. Jay, let's dive into this. Let's go right back. Let's take a trip down memory lane. Let's go back to you getting started in this. Let's go back to your development days as in QA
Okay.
and everything like that. Would you wake up one day and say, you know what, I'd like to work for a video game company and be QA engineer on projects?
So it actually it was a really fortuitous experience or occasion that it happened. So when I started in the industry, I was working as a telemarketer, selling scholastic children's books on the phone, and legitimately hating everything about my existence. Like it was the worst job I've ever had. I used to get yelled at regularly by grandmothers because I was trying to sell Captain Underpants, and there's nothing more vulgar than Captain Underpants. They were very, very upset that he existed. But a buddy of mine down in Orlando was going to a digital media school, and EA came in and said, "Hey, we're hiring for testers." And he let me know, and I was like, "Well, anything's better than telemarketing. Like, even if this only gives me 6 months away from calling people on the phone, then it's still 6 months of getting my soul back and and feeling like a human being again." Um, so it was a whirlwind when it happened. So I put in my resume. I had a phone interview, an in-person interview, a hire date, and a start date within like 72 hours.
Wow.
Um, it was, I mean, looking back at it now, I realize that that's just the way the industry was for testers at the time. It was get bodies in the door, get people on the games, just so we have people looking at it. But at the time, I was just like, this is a sign, this is life changing, and it was incredible. It was really unforgiving at times. It was a really hard job. It still is a really hard job. I still do QA, but it was something where uh, I went because I wanted to fulfill a childhood dream of working in the game industry. And when I did, I realized that it became a career, and it's
Hmm.
something that I've been doing now for over 20 years. So,
Wow. Did you always play video games? Like I know when we were talking with everybody has a story, right? And
Mhm.
we talked about Game Dad, and last week, he said he didn't grow up with his parents who were very anti video games. How did you grow up? Did you grow up playing these games, or I mean, I know we talked about, or I read about, your cousin kind of introduced you, but
Yep.
before that, did you dabble with it at all? Were your parents like anti video games?
Well, so I didn't grow up with my dad, so I can't really say much about what his attitude was, but I was very lucky in that my mom has always been very technology forward,
Okay.
uh, and very interested about uh, technology being a part of who I was growing up. Like she made sure we had an Apple IIe, we had a Commodore 64. It was always stuff where it was like, this is new, you need to try this. This is new, you need to try this. Um, and but the first time I had really played a video game, I always say like the first one I played was Atari Super Football with my cousin Greg, but I'm I have vague memories of playing Donkey Kong on an arcade machine, but I was so young I don't really think it counts. Like it wasn't one of those touchstone moments. Like the Atari Football, I remember vividly the situation. Like um
The little
we
squares.
the little squares that look like gingerbread men.
Yes.
Um, and it was a thing where my cousin Greg is like 7 years older than me, and I worshipped the ground he walked on. I still do. He's just an unbelievable human being, and that he wanted to play with his little cousin was just everything to me. It absolutely blew my mind. And it was I remember he had an exploit that he knew where you could run off one side of the field, and the
Hmm.
guy would run onto the other side. And that blew my mind. That was the coolest thing ever. Like, oh my gosh, that can happen. Um, and that's kind of really where that fire got lit, was for playing that for the first time. But I had a ColecoVision and I enjoyed that, but it didn't really start for me until I got my NES. And for so many people, it's Super Mario Brothers was their thing. For me, it was Duck Hunt. Um,
Yes.
that like even to this, like I'm old now. I understand how this technology works, but I look at it and I go, that was just such a cool thing to experience as a kid, where it was like, I can shoot these fake ducks with this fake gun. And the coolest thing about that was seeing my grandfather get excited about it and him want to play it and want to try it out. Like, this is a guy that wanted nothing to do with video games until he saw Duck Hunt. And he's like, oh, what's that? Tell me about that game. I'm interested in that game. So, I mean, you got to play Duck Hunt with my grandpa. I mean, that's just the coolest thing ever.
Oh
But
yeah. That was a nice way to sit there and go, wow, I can digitally shoot something. The only thing is you couldn't shoot the dang dog when he laughed at you. That was the only
yeah,
downside to it.
yeah, my grandfather really wanted to shoot that dog.
I wonder how
Um,
many CRTs got broken because of that.
but yeah, so my mom was really technology forward, and it was something where she always wanted me to have something that I was interested in, and something that would, 'cause she could see the way the world was going. She knew that technology was the future.
Yeah, sure.
Um, and when I saw an interest in video games, it was never a case of those are going to rot your brain. You need to limit your time on them. It was, you can play them as much as you want as long as you're spending time outside and as long as you're getting your homework done.
Hmm.
So I was encouraged to play. I was encouraged to get into these games and try new games. And we always went to, there was this video store in Westport, Massachusetts. It was a hole in the wall. But they always had just tons of NES games, and every week we'd go and rent 2 or 3 of them. So I was always trying new stuff. Um, Looking back at it, that's probably where my video game ADHD comes from, where I'm always playing like 15 different things at the same time. But
I think we all do that.
yeah,
To an extent, I think we all have some form of ADHD for that.
my wife, man, boy, she laser focuses on a game. Like she's got 500-600 hours in Breath of the Wild, just like combing every square inch of Hyrule trying to get through that game and find as many secrets as she can. It's shut up, Chris. My Boston is not showing. Uh, she's she's just it's something where I watch it and I'm like, that's so cool to see you get into it because that's not the way my brain works. I'm just like, no, point A, point B, go as fast as you can. And she's just up and down every single possible pathway to find the secrets. It's really cool to see.
So you played the Atari, you played the Atari football with your cousin. You said like me, you know, the Nintendo was your first. That was your first kind of love. And was that the first system that you owned, or did you end up going out and buying like an Atari, or have your mom buy you an Atari? Did you actually get the Nintendo as your first very own system?
The first system I owned was a ColecoVision.
Okay,
Um,
okay,
and I had I had Smurfs Paint and Play Workshop. I had I want to say I had Donkey Kong on there.
okay.
Um, I had a few games. I don't remember too many of them. I remember playing it, but I don't remember it in depth. Like
It didn't hit home.
it didn't hit home. It was fun, but it wasn't something where it became an obsession yet. That was really the NES that triggered that side of it.
So even at that young of an age, you weren't thinking of collecting at that point yet. You were still in the I am figuring this out. Nothing's really hitting home type.
Not collecting video games. I was collecting toys. GI Joe was my thing.
Okay.
Um, GI Joe and Masters of the Universe were the things I
Yes.
primarily collected. So I had a ton of GI Joe figures and vehicles and stuff like that. Those were my thing. GI Joe is still my favorite thing. Like it is, um, it's like above everything. Like that is the thing I gravitate towards. Is like, oh, there's new GI Joe toys. I need to buy those. Like those will take over for video games if there's something new out. Like I've got to get the new Joes
Oh, even
because
still,
it's just.
even
Oh
still.
yeah,
Oh yeah,
absolutely. Like
yeah.
I've got I've got Shipwreck here
Oh,
from the
there you
GI Joe
go.
Classified series, right? Right next to me. I've got probably 50 of those now, just hanging around the house. So
Well, I mean, listen, everybody. I mean, I've met a lot of creators that do collect toys and games, so I don't see anything wrong with it. My thing is, you start getting to the point where you're like, where am I going to put this stuff? And I'm sure you're
the
there as well, right?
well, yeah, and we rent, so it's like I don't even have the option of like with Chris watching him go through that unbelievable remodel that he did in his basement. Um, yeah, man, the FOMO hit on that because it was just like I can't do a thing to mine. I can move some bookshelves. That's about as far as I can get. Um, so like we're a couple of years away from being able to buy a house, but once we do, then I
Then
can
all
have the
bets are
full
off,
exposure.
right?
Yeah,
You get
like
the man
I can get.
cave.
Yeah, and it's nice because I mean it's like we're my whole family games, like all three of us
Okay.
do. So it's something where it's a place for us to hang out and spend time together. Like we watch movies down here right now, but it's not quite exactly what I want yet. So we'll get there.
Well, I mean, it takes time. That's like we always say,
Hmm.
Rome wasn't built overnight, and so but you got to collect what you like, and if you don't like it and you're not enjoying it, there's no sense. So, um, you got your NES,
Yep.
okay? What was the first game that you picked up for the NES?
Oh, outside of Super Mario Brothers Duck Hunt, I want to say it was Ghosts and Goblins. And somehow I kept playing video games, even though that was one of the first ones I got. Uh, I loathe that game to this day. I can't stand it. It's so hard. Uh, uh, but I think it was probably Ghosts and Goblins. If not Ghosts and Goblins, something like RC Pro Am or Marble Madness. I can't remember exactly. Um,
Okay, we just became even more best friends because Marble Madness, honest to God, was like one of my favorite all-time games. In fact, my At Games Legend, my first version of it, was
mhm,
skinned in the Atari Marble Madness bright orange because it
that's
was my
awesome.
favorite. Like,
That's really cool.
so that to hear you say that, you're the first person. Everybody's like, "Really, Marble Madness? You liked Marble Madness? Like, what game is that even?" You know?
See, I always appreciated Marble Madness, but Marble Madness didn't appreciate me because I was always terrible at it. It's a brutally unforgiving game.
It is.
Um, but once I got my NES Advantage, like things started to kind of click a little bit more because I felt like I had better control. It was still the same four directions, but it
Yeah,
was
it was a little bit
it was one
easier.
of slightly easier, and at least it felt cooler when I was playing it as opposed to holding the little brick trying to make it
Oh,
work.
see, my brother had the NES Max, and that actually
Nice.
made it a little bit easier because it almost felt like a trackball.
Okay, I can
With
see
that,
that.
so that's how I play it now with a trackball. But No, that's just awesome because not many people say Marble Madness was one of their favorite games, and so to hear that, it's just like, okay, I'm not weird.
No, definitely not. I think Marble Madness is an underappreciated game, and what a killer soundtrack too. Like, there's something
Yes.
that does not get talked about enough. The music in Marble Madness is legit. It's so good.
So we pick up those games. You know, you probably did what all of us do. You borrow games from your friends. Were you a big RPG fan? I mean, did you get into games like Legend of Zelda, Faxanadu, those types of games, Chrysalis, or were you more like into the beat 'em ups? What was your style?
I was into if I could push the buttons on it, I wanted to play it. Um, it was like some of my favorites growing up. Blaster Master was one of my favorites. Mega Man 2 is my all-time favorite NES game. That was something I play through Mega Man 2 every year.
Wow.
Um, it's been my favorite game for my favorite NES game for 40 years now, roughly. Um, I played Dragon Warrior when they sent it out with
Hmm.
Nintendo Power subscriptions. That was the first like real heavy RPG I got into. But yeah, like Faxanadu, Crystalis, the Willow game from
Yes.
Capcom was brilliant. The GI Joe games from it was Capcom. I can't remember who made the other one. Uh, it doesn't
There was a
matter. I
white
don't need to
label
think.
one. I don't have it yet, but there was a white label one, and I forget what the other color was of the other one. But there was two GI Joe games, right?
Yeah, there was the white label one, and then there was the Atlantis Factor, which is the one
Right.
that Capcom developed. Um, both of those are great. But yeah, it was basically if there was something available at the video store, we'd rent it.
Hmm.
Um, and either that or my mom somehow had this unbelievable ability to find games on clearance. Like um, there was a Christmas in particular where I got a shoebox, or not a shoebox, it's bigger than that, a box full of NES games. I must have gotten 20 NES games for
Wow.
Christmas that year. And she spent like $5 a piece on them.
Wow.
Um, and it was like everything from, like amazing games like Ice Hockey or Zelda 2 down to stuff like Ninja Kid, which no one remembers, and you shouldn't because it's not good, but it's something that I love. Because it was one of those memories I had that my mom got it for me, so
Yeah.
it was something that was important to me.
And what he's not telling you is that even though that box she got was probably like a maximum of $20 today, you'd probably spend 20,000 for that box
Oh yeah,
because
easy,
the value,
easy.
the value. I know the GI Joe games are going for like 80 to 100 bucks a piece right now. So,
Yep.
yeah, I'm embarking in that collecting the whole collection of the NES. So yeah, I've been pricing these. So to hear this, a lot of these folks. Listen, I've had people come on and say, and I'm not going to name the person, but we all know her. I mean, who didn't like the Mario games. They just were not a Mario fan in that capacity. So I'm always interested to hear like what games do people get. I mean, obviously you got the pack-in titles, but to hear that you went for other titles, that's pretty awesome to see that you expanded just out of the gate. I mean, did you have any family that had a Nintendo that really kind of pushed you?
My cousin Amanda did.
Okay.
She had an NES and we would trade games every once in a while, not too often, because we were just far enough away that it was just difficult enough to get together on weekends. Um, but I would trade with her. But I had like my friend Josh lived next door. We'd trade NES games back and forth. Borrow stuff from him or borrow stuff from my friend Peter or Ricky or something like that. So there was always new games coming in some way, shape, or form.
So after that, you went through the whole Nintendo spiel. You got, you started getting into that. Um, like most of us, you were probably, getting close. You get the Super Nintendo probably when it came out, or just didn't want to let go of the Nintendo. You go to college, which is where most of us get into trouble, and we sell all of our games. Did you in fact do that, or did you hold on to all your stuff when you either went, got a job or went to college?
I have two games from my childhood. That's it. I have my copy of Star Tropics, and I have my copy of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game. That's it.
Wow.
Uh, I absolutely got rid of everything. I either sold it because I needed money.
Yep.
I traded it because there was something new coming out that I wanted to get, uh, or just random things that come up where it's like I look at I look at collecting as an opportunity to curate things that you want in your life. I used to be a completionist on stuff. I used to just buy as much as I possibly could, just for the sake of buying the thing, not getting really any joy or pleasure out of it. And over the last probably 10 years, actually probably about 15 years, ever since my son was born, I've kind of looked at that as a really, for me, and this is specifically for me, like I don't want to talk about, not pointing fingers at the way anyone else collects because I think that's ridiculous. But for me, it became a really unhealthy way to collect and to go about life. So I've since curated that down to the point where I'm only buying things that, like Marie Kondo. I'm only going things that spark joy for me. And sometimes that's weird stuff, like every NHL game from Electronic Arts.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's something like buying all the Suikoden games, which I have Chris to thank for that. He got me Suikoden 2. But like last year, my big thing to track down was Suikoden 5 because I couldn't find it here locally. It was something where I try now to only get things that I care about. And if I end up with things that I don't care about, those get kicked down the road because there's no sense in me holding on to them because I'm not going for a complete set of stuff. It's not something that I have a passion for.
Mm. I think some of the people, like even me, when I do completionist type things, I think it's because I never could do it when I was a kid, right? Like,
Oh, sure, yeah,
I think that's the
that's
drive behind it, right?
that's absolutely kind of what I'm saying. It's like this is specifically for me. Like I look at stuff, I look at people going after a complete collection, something like Brandy's a perfect example of this, going for her Super Nintendo collection. Not something I want to do. No desire, no
Well,
passion, no interest in that whatsoever.
yeah.
But I love watching her get excited about it
Oh yeah.
because that is the thing that matters to me. That's the thing that I find cool is when I see someone get excited over something like, I found a copy of Pit Fighter that I haven't been able to find. I
Right.
hate that game. But God, is it cool to watch someone find it and be like, I'm one step closer. That's the story behind the quest is really what gets me going and what gets me excited to watch people collect.
I want to put this out there to everybody that's watching. Just because we're collectors doesn't mean we're actually smart. So I just want to put that out there as a disclaimer to all of you guys out there.
Absolutely true.
we
Absolutely true.
we are collectors, and we enjoy what we do. And you're absolutely right. Like to see the passion behind just simple things, right? Games that I may not be into, but watching you in a video get excited that you're collecting all of the EA Sports titles or the hockey titles, whatever it is. I think that just feeds what we're doing, right? It
Yeah.
just sends it to you. It takes you back in the day of when we all were getting these games growing up, right?
Yeah, there's a comment actually from Game Dad right now where he said the Wii U set will be mine. And this is a perfect example because for me, like, no desire whatsoever to collect that whole set. But I have gone to shows and actively looked for things I know he's missing
Yeah.
because I want to see him complete that set. And I mean, maybe that's collecting by proxy for me. Like it's something where I'm clinging on to that little bit of dopamine.
You just want to say to him, you'd never have that collection if I didn't find that for you.
You're damn right. I'm gonna say that.
I knew it. You could always hold it over his head, right? To say, you know what, Game Dad? It's because of me. And only because of me that you have that game. That's what I could see.
I did this to you.
Yeah, you did it to him. Well, you obviously you went through college. You went to school to be a game developer, for QA and do the game development and go into all that. You met your wife. You mentioned earlier your whole family plays video games, right? You
Yep.
guys all play. How has this impacted your relationship with her? I mean, has she supported? It's always nice to bring this up, and this is why I'm bringing this up, is because when you have a spouse that supports you in your collecting habits, it's almost like taking the chains off, like letting you run wild, a vampire in a blood bank, right? Like that's kind of where I'm, and I don't think people understand, like, if somebody's against what you're doing collecting, you're gonna have a rough time trying to collect. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm incredibly lucky. Like I have said so many times that I am punching way out of my weight class with my wife. Like, she is. A short joke. Thanks, Chris. I am like the most fortunate person on the planet to be married to who I'm married to. Like she supports my creative endeavors. She supports my professional quests as a QA professional. She has bought me so many things for my collection because she knows I want it. She encourages me, like when we go to a convention, if there's something that I'm hemming and hawing over, she will say, no, you need to pull the trigger on it because you're not going to see it where we're at. So I'm very lucky in that regard. But she also keeps me grounded too. Like it's a case where if it's something where I'm like, I'm thinking about picking up, like Earthbound is the perfect example of this. Where I'd be like, I'm thinking about picking up Earthbound. She's like, you can spend $400 on Earthbound. That'd be fine, but you can't buy anything else for the rest of the show. And it's like, oh, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. I can't spend any more money than that. So it's nice to have someone that not only gets what I like and understands that this is not just me buying for the sake of buying. It's buying because I love games, because I love GI Joes, stuff like that. It's good though that she also pumps the brakes on it a little bit and is just like, hey, you need to slow down a little bit here. You're getting a little bit out of hand. So
No, I mean that's good that you have a balance, right? And
yep.
and it's like we always bring up, and Steve Wright has been a proprietary person in this, and stating that he always says, if you have to sit back and say I can't part with this, you have a problem, and
Yep.
he's right. Like if
Absolutely.
if it meant you getting rid of your collection right now to provide for your family, what I'm hearing is, yeah, I have no problem doing that.
Oh, it's gone. It's gone tomorrow. If I had to do that, it would be gone. Um, I have gotten rid of my collection in the past. It's not something like I won't lie and say I have no regrets for the stuff I got rid of. There's certainly things that I regret that I've gotten rid of, but 100% right there, it is only money. And at the end of the day, if it's something where I need to sell something to make sure that we're able to keep our electric bill on, or
Right.
God forbid something happens to my wife and my son and they need to go to the hospital and I need to cover some extra expenses that way.
Yeah.
This stuff's gone. And I won't bat an eye and I won't be upset whatsoever.
I think that's healthy to say that. I think we all, everybody that I've talked to so far, has had that same sentiment, right? We've all said the same thing. I kind of took a little break from buying games too when we got closer to having the baby, because we had to put money aside. My wife's out of work for 2 months. You have to do the adult thing, right? You have adult monies, but you still have to figure out what you're going to do. So hearing that, I want people to realize, like, this isn't just like a sick habit that that we all have. It's a passion, just like somebody collecting bottle caps or
Yep.
pins or stamps or baseball cards. This is what we do. Now I got to ask you. With that said, and I was watching Game Dad in the chat, and he's like, "You should see us at a convention." Do you get more fun from the thrill of the hunt for the game than actually playing the game?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I I did a video on the channel in the past, kind of discussing whether or not I was a collector or I was a gamer, and I really think that I lean more towards being a gamer. Like
Okay.
I do have a collection, but I don't buy a game unless I intend to play it.
Okay.
Like I'm not just looking for a shelf item to have on the wall just to say, look what I have. Look at this amazing trophy that will stay there and never be touched again. I mentioned Suikoden 2. Chris got that for me for my birthday last year. And it would have been real easy for me to say this needs to go on the shelf. This needs to be put away. I never need to play this again. But I immediately put it into my PlayStation 2 and played it. To me, games are meant to be played. And if I'm just buying it to have it, I don't really. That's not what I get into. And hi, Glenn. I missed your message. It's good to see you, buddy. I'm glad you're here.
So I probably know what the answer is, but I'm going to ask it anyways, because if there's a chance to make some people in the collecting world mad, we're going to do it. That's just what
Yeah.
we do.
Oh,
You see
absolutely.
you see a sealed game, or you get a sealed game. Do you open it and play it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now I will hedge my bets here, much like Chris. If I go to a garage sale and I find a sealed copy of Stadium Events, I'm not opening that.
Yeah, I think there's some exceptions to the rule.
Absolutely calling up people at auction houses and being like, "Hey, guess what? Let's make me a millionaire, folks." Yeah, no, I don't know. Like it's for me, it's there's a certain beauty in a sealed game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's something. It's that immaculate perfection of having something that's pristine, that's never been touched. But man, God, I love opening a game and playing it. Like that new game smell is just so nice. And even better when you get something that's like 20 years old sealed and you pop it open. Oh, that's the best feeling in the world. I love it.
Well,
Love it.
hey, listen, there's a lot of people out there that are like, I can't believe you're opening that game. Oh, but then on the other side of the spectrum, they're like, why didn't you leave that sealed? It was already sealed. So it's always nice to ask that question and put it out there. I was debating on whether to ask that. I didn't ask any of the others, but I was debating that because I know there's a strong stigma in the community about that. So listen, everybody has their preference, right? That's all that matters.
And there's nothing wrong with either preference either. Like
no.
To me, it really depends on what kind of collector you are. And if you're collecting to have a sealed set of something,
that's different.
Do it. That's awesome.
Yes.
Like that's a hell of a pursuit. It's not something I'm going to do. But I'm going to enthusiastically cheer you on that you complete that set and you complete that collection for yourself.
Right.
So.
What I want to do right now, we're going to take a break here shortly, but what I want to do, I want to ask you this question. You know, we're coming up to the point. You're married. You have a kid. You're collecting. You're building your collection. Now you decide, maybe I should start a YouTube channel. So I want to get into that a little bit. We'll give you an opportunity to think about that. Guys, we're going to take a quick break and come back with more from Mr. Square Pigs himself, Jay Malone. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, let me tell you a little bit about something to do with energy. We all could use a little bit of energy in our lives, especially when we're gaming out there, right? We could all use some form of energy supplement, something to keep our mind sharp and our energy and our focus on the games. And that's where one of my latest partners, and that is MAW Energy, MAW Energy. And I want to tell you a little bit about it here today. And they have a plethora of different flavors and choices amongst everything that they have here. At MAW Energy, the mission is to fuel the gaming community with the highest quality energy. And that's one thing I like about these guys. They have a highest quality of energy focus blend on the market, and their special formulated energy drink provides gamers with sustained energy bursts and focus without the jitters and crashes. I can tell you that for certainty. Commonly associated with all the other energy drinks that I've seen personally on the market, and they're passionate about the gaming community and understand the unique demands that it places on the mind, the body, and even the soul. That's why we've partnered with this company to bring you the MAW Energy. Now, you can click on the link in the description below and check it out using my personal link. I get access to everything here, and I get credit for it. And you guys can see right here, Blue Raspberry. Blue Raspberry is one of my favorites. In fact, you guys will be able to see right here. I have the Blue Raspberry here, and this is one of my favorites, actually. I have this one, and I have the Mythic Melon. I haven't given that a try yet, but this so far, one of the things that I like about this is the fact that it's not chalky. A lot of times with these energy drinks, you get a little bit of chalk in there, and what I mean by that is that chalk aftertaste, or it doesn't dissolve. I can honestly tell you from experience, this here dissolves. So give it a try. Click on the link below and in the description and give it a try. You won't be sorry. I know I'm not.
All right, it's funny because Jay and I were just talking about this with the MAW Energy, right? And you also have been I don't want to say experimenting because it makes it sound like you're going to blow something up or something. I don't know. But you yourself, you've tried it. You like it. It's not just
I have,
me.
yeah. Yeah, no, they reached out to me a couple of months ago, and it was I was super skeptical because I mean I'm not a huge energy drink guy, so I was like, I'm not really interested. But they were like, you know what, we'll send you a sample, you try it out, see how you like it. And I've had just 8 ounces every morning before work, and I'm fine for the whole day. I'm focused. I'm actually able to get stuff done. So
Yeah.
it's really nice.
See, and you guys just thought I sold my soul for a cup of juice or something like that. See, it's not the case. There's other people that like it. So, welcome back. I just had to put that out there. Welcome back to the show. We're talking here with my good buddy here, Mr. Square Pegs himself, Jay Malone, and we're talking. If you missed the beginning part, shame on you. Go back and watch it later on. We talked about how he got started, and now we've come to the point in your life taking this trip down memory. I feel like we need some sappy violin music or something, playing in the background.
Sarah McLachlan.
Yeah, exactly.
Arms of an Angel.
I feel like that needs to be played. We come to the point. You're married. You've got kids. You're now saying, you know what? I want to be a content creator. What got that started? How did you come up with Square Pegs? And don't give me the whole game dad thing. Well, I'm game. I like to game, and I'm a dad. So
no, I actually have a good story behind me. Unlike Chris with his terrible "I'm a game." I like games and I'm a dad. What a terrible story. Come on, man. Do better, game dad. Do better. So my whole channel started because I was having severe social anxiety. I've worked at home now, worked from home remotely since 2015. And for the previous, 25 years of my existence, I had worked in an office, in a factory, at a, building boats, stuff like that. I was always around people. And I realized that working from home, I suddenly had myself convinced that I didn't know how to talk to people anymore. And that manifested by we went out to dinner with a bunch of friends of ours, and I had a panic attack at the restaurant because I felt like every eye was on me in the place, and I didn't know what to do. At the same time, I had just discovered Metal Jesus and John Riggs, and they had done. I think Jason had just posted one of the videos about the trip to
Japan.
I think it was the Oregon Beach House.
Oh, okay, yeah. With it,
and I was just like, that is really cool. That was really cool. And I was like, I'd love to do something like that one day. And somehow those two occasions kind of confluenced in my head to my brain saying, you should start a YouTube channel, because if you can talk to a camera, you can talk to people. And that is not the case, because I still have social anxiety and I have a hard time talking to people. But September of 2019, I started my channel.
Wow.
Immediately stopped because I hated every second of content creation. I was like, no, this is awful. I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. No one's going to watch my stuff anyway. I don't have anything unique.
Was it you just because you didn't like the way you sounded on a microphone, or you didn't like the way you looked on camera? Like what was that deciding factor? Oh, really?
All the above. Yeah, no, I hated the way I looked. I hated the way I sounded. My lighting sucked. Everything. I was uncomfortable. I was unhappy. I did not want to be there. And then the world shut down.
Yeah.
So March came around. The world shut down. All of a sudden, everyone in my house was home. And I needed an outlet. I needed a creative outlet. And it was basically a case. It's like, well, I've already got this channel.
Yeah.
I now am friends talking to people like John Riggs and John Hancock and Chris, Gary from Rock Solid Productions. Steve Wright was in the chat at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a case I was like, you know what? I got to try this again. I got to give it another shot. I actually have people that can offer me constructive criticism now, as opposed to me just throwing a video against the wall and hoping something sticks. And I started at that point doing 2 videos a week. And I could notice after about 2 months that there was a dramatic improvement in not only me personally, but also the content I was making. I went from trying to emulate people that I admired and people that I watched to kind of finding my own voice.
Mm-hmm.
And there's still a whole lot of emulation of people that I admire, because I mean, imitation is the most sincere form of flattery, obviously. But
yeah.
I do feel that I'm at a point now with the channel that I kind of have my own story to tell. I have my own way to handle things and my own way of editing and constructing a video that I can. I mean, I'm certainly not any better than anybody, but I'm my own unique channel now, which I enjoy. So now it's become something I love. Like, it went from something I hated doing to like my favorite thing to do now is make content. So
I think it's interesting to hear you say that, because like when I started watching you, it was a little bit before Korg's last year. Korg's was in the end of May, I want to say.
Mhm.
I think he had it last year at the end of May. I probably started watching you probably like 5 or 6 months prior to Korg's. I stumbled upon it. I think it was even maybe an NES video, because obviously my interest in it, you came up in the search, and I was kind of like, oh, this guy's really cool. He has this like very mellow voice, very soothing, very easy to listening to. You're not sitting there like going, ah, like he's driving me nuts. Oh, hey, listen, there's people out there with good content, but you just can't listen to their voice. It's
absolutely.
just how it is. Nothing against those people, but that's why they say there's content creators for everybody. You're very well spoken, so to hear you say that you had a hard time with how you sounded, or just like not like it is hard talking to a camera. Like I ain't gonna lie, it is. But that just blows my mind, because I would have guessed, if I hadn't read up on all this stuff before the show, I would have guessed you had some kind of background in some kind of production, in whether it be radio or TV, or maybe you were doing social media for your job at some point.
Well, I had done some TV production stuff, but it was back in high school. Like,
Okay.
it was a class. And I'd done podcasts and things like that, but I was never on camera. Like I've acted, I've been on stage, I've done voice acting, so that's all stuff that I'm okay with and I don't have a problem with. But the second I put this in front of it and I heard my voice coming out of a face that I'm not particularly fond of most of the time, it was something where I was like, I hate that. I really hate putting those two things together and having to see myself talk. And initially it was a case of, well, maybe I can just go faceless. You know, maybe I can just be, 100% voiceover. I can just do gameplay footage and stuff like that. But those videos were unbelievably unsatisfying to me, because I didn't feel like there was any kind of personal connection there. It was just footage and talk. And like, that's not why I watch a video.
Right.
You know, if for me, if I'm watching something, it's because I see someone and I go, oh, that's him. I need to watch him. That's what he's talking about. I'm into that. And it took a while for me to kind of get that confidence and get to the point where I was, okay, I'm all right with this. I can do this now. Like, there was at Midwest Gaming Classic, I want to say it was 2021. I think it was whatever year I got my award from
From
Retro Gaming Magazine.
Yeah.
It was something where it in the time it happened, it was one of the coolest things that had ever happened to me. I was thrilled. I was excited. I was honored. And like, legitimately, the drive home, because mental health's real. It's something that we all need to take care of. And it was something where that drive home from Milwaukee to Kalamazoo, I got into my head that I wasn't worth the time. I wasn't worth people watching. I wasn't worth the videos. And I was convinced that this was just something I didn't deserve. And I was that close to quitting the channel at that point.
Even after you got the award?
Especially after I got the award.
Really?
Yeah. It was something where I felt like I was just kind of swept in with other people that deserved it more just because I knew them. And it's taken me a while to get past that and to be confident enough in myself and the content I make to realize that I have a voice, and I have a voice that people seem to enjoy. And I feel a lot better most days now. You know, it's not every day. There's still some days where I'll put something out and I'll be like, that's terrible. No one's going to watch this. It's an awful video. I don't even know why I bothered publishing it. But that's just because, I mean, it's just, like I said, mental health is real. You got to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is relying on people like Chris, like Thor, John Riggs, John Hancock, talking to them and kind of working through those demons in my head. And getting to the point where I'm proud of the work I do, and I'm fairly consistently there now.
Yeah.
There's strikes and gutters, to quote the Big Lebowski. There's good days and bad days, but it's yeah.
I don't think people realize because you want to keep your circle small. Like there's a few people that you put your trust into. There's certain people that you worry about, and I think Steve Wright was one, Jay, that told me this. Because I talk with him daily, him and Elliot, and we're in a little chat too, kind of like what you guys have.
Mhm.
And one of the things that he's really big on is encouraging, and it to me, and even Brandy, those people that I talk to daily are the only ones that matter to me. When like he'll sit there and be like, "What did you do to that thumbnail?" Like, get rid of it. Like I'll show him ahead of time or something, because he's speaking from experience, right?
Mhm.
And so it gets to the point where that's all that should matter. Like if he's sitting there going, "Man, put this out, do this type of content," and like you're saying, you need that. So as people that are watching this, if you're diving into content creation, listen to what the man's saying right now, because we all go through this. Like this is not something that once you hit a certain point. I know of talking with John Riggs, people attack him, they attack his family, and I've learned through talking to these people like how you set it aside, and it doesn't change the bigger you get, right?
Yeah, it gets worse. To be honest with you, like it's the larger the channel becomes,
Yeah.
the more aggressive the trolls become.
Yep.
And in a lot of cases, it's hilarious because it's like, yeah, I know I'm fat. I've met me. I've seen me in the mirror. Get some original content, right? But then there's people that get really personal on it, and in a lot of cases, those can be just laughed off because it's like, all right, you're trying to get under my skin, and I see that. But there's always one of those days where you think you're fine, where you think you're fine, and then someone will say something, and it's just like, yep, that's going to live rent free for a couple of days. That's going to just keep floating around in my head. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's so important to have people around you, whether it's people you can talk to about content creation, or you just have family and friends that aren't necessarily in tune 100% with the things you're working on, but you can still bounce ideas off of them, still talk to them about stuff. It's so important to have a sounding board and just have someone that's willing to listen. So.
You need that, and as much as your family's there to cheerlead you, I mean that's what they're supposed to do. Sometimes you need that outside reflection from other creators that are like-minded, that they're not thinking that you're trying to upstage them or whatever. I mean, I've seen and heard things from creators. It's stupid, but it's a very good lesson. I think if anybody takes away anything from Jay tonight of wisdom, that was wisdom there. Like find yourself a circle, get plugged in with people that are going to encourage you and help you do better. Like you want to constantly raise the bar, right? With your channel, you want to constantly get better at what you're doing, not get worse, right? So with having those people, it makes it a bit easier with that. So along those lines, you start seeing movement, you start seeing progression, you start seeing your channel growing, right? You start seeing people. You're up over, and I didn't look at the numbers here. I can pull it up here in a little bit, but upwards over 10,000 subscribers at this point in time, right?
Yeah, 11,300 something last I
Okay.
checked. It's grown bigger than I ever thought it would. It was something when I started. I always said if I get to 100 subscribers, that's a success. And it's huge now. It's so much bigger than I ever thought it would be, and I'm so appreciative of everyone that clicks on a thumbnail.
And I want to put this out there. If you guys haven't done so, if this is the first time you're seeing Jay, I would strongly encourage you to go to his YouTube channel, youtube.com/squarepegs. You've been seeing it in the lower third. Go over there, subscribe, hit the bell notification. Don't worry, Jay didn't pay me to do that. I do this for all. I try to do this for all. But no, having guests on that of channels that I watch, you see it there, Jay. I'm subscribed. I got the bell turned on. I want to know every time Jay puts out a video that even though he thinks it's crap, I want to watch it. So I always watch it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
But yeah, Jay, and we're going to get to this in a little bit. Different conventions. In fact, I totally missed him last year at Corks. He was there. I just found out tonight Nintendo was there. I met Nintendo in person for his first time in Cleveland. Jay tells me we're setting up for the show. He's like, "Oh yeah, I was hanging out with Nintendo the whole time at Corks," and I'm like, "I don't know how I didn't run into either of you guys." Like, I ran into all these other people. Steve kept jumping in front of all my videos every single time I was doing that.
I saw you at one point and you were interviewing someone, and I said, "Okay, I got to circle back around and see him." And it was just at that point I came back around. I was like, "He's not there now. I don't know where he is." But yeah, I mean, we ended up meeting up. It worked out eventually.
Yeah, so it turned out good. So then we met up in Cleveland. You, me, Game Dad, Gamer. We're all talking, having a good time, and talking about this year's conventions with bringing the broadcasting stuff and kind of hanging out and doing some stuff like that. But that was a really cool time, and I think you would agree that people watching, if they have an opportunity, and I want you to tell everybody if they're interested in seeing you in person and kind of seeing like, this is Jay, this is not a facade, this is not an act, this is really how I have to be careful because Game Dad's going to use what I say against you, so I'm being very careful with how I'm saying things. This is really how Jay is, and like, what conventions are you going to be at if people want to go and check out that you know of right now, and even potential ones coming up?
Sure. Officially, I am going to be at Midwest Gaming Classic, first weekend in April. Can't wait for that one. It's always a fantastic show.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to be at CorgsCon at the start of June in Columbus, Ohio. I'll be back at Torg in Columbus in November. And then there's some that are not official yet, but I'm planning on Southeast Game Exchange in Greenville, South Carolina. I'm planning on Cleveland Gaming Classic again, and I'm planning on the Pittsburgh Gaming Expo.
So there's plenty of opportunities to meet these guys and to come out. Steve Wright, he's like, you need to be in those videos. Probably did. That's probably why people were actually watching them. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to doing actual in-person content with you and other creators that are there. It's ever since I made the jump, I've really been fortunate to find good creator friends in this community that, even though you and we don't talk all the time, every time I've spoken to you, it's always been always positive, upbeat. How can I help you? Like that type of thing. And it's really been cool to see that. And so I want to encourage everybody out there watching, if you have a chance to meet this guy, go talk to him. But let's talk a little bit real quick. You always wear the bananas hat, right? Well, it's funny.
I actually made a conscious decision to not wear it tonight because I was like, I've worn that in like every video over the last 2 months.
Well, I was going to ask you because a friend of mine is their social media coordinator. He actually lives like literally 10 minutes away. Like he travels with them. Like I'm really good friends with him. So I might have to put you in touch.
Oh, please do. Oh my God, I'm fanboying out right now. That's amazing.
I'll, when we get off the air, I will get into that. But I just thought it was funny because I had never heard the team before, and then I never even seen people wear the clothing until I met you, and I'm going, maybe these guys are like legit. Like I thought they were just like the Harlem Globetrotters of baseball or something. Like I don't know. I didn't follow them, right? So it was rather interesting to see that. And yeah, you didn't wear it tonight.
But my wife asked me, she's like, what hat are you going to wear? I was like, I was thinking about wearing the bananas hat, but I've legitimately worn that in every video for the last 2 months. I need to change it up. She's like, well, put on one of your scally caps. You always look nice in those. So I did that. I was like,
it's not a bad hat that you're wearing. No. I just thought it was funny.
I like this. It's a nice look. It's a nice look.
Real quick, Adam Kalb says, Jay, you need to schedule to come to Florida for free play in Orlando.
Dude, I would love to come down to Orlando. I haven't been in Orlando in about 9 years now. I used to live down there. I lived down there for 20 plus years. I used to go to Acme Superstore up in Longwood, which is our comic and toy store up there. I used to go buy games at Cybertron. Yeah, I would love to get back down there. Free Play Florida is on the list. I want to do that one. I want to do Really Rad Weekend. Those are both ones I very badly want to do.
So where do you see your channel right now? Like if you had to, I'm new, I've never watched your channel ever. Okay. Sell me on your channel. Tell me why I need to watch Square Pigs. What sets you apart from other creators? Obviously, in your own opinion, this isn't to like. But I want to know, as somebody that may be seeing Jay for the first time, what can I expect from Jay on the Square Pigs channel?
I would hope that you can expect someone speaking with honesty about the things that he loves, because I don't like, I will suggest things that I enjoy. Like if I talk about a game on my channel, it's because I genuinely like it. I'm not just gonna tell you, hey, you need to pick up X because you should pick up X because everyone's talking about it. Like no one's telling people to go out and buy Geometry Survivors like I did this week in the Shop Hidden Gems video. And I try to speak comfortably. Like I don't want anyone to feel like I'm preaching at you or telling you what you need to do. I try to keep things conversational. I try to keep things light. The best compliment I've ever received, my friend Aldo, who runs the Norwalk Public Library Video Game Club on Fridays, told me that watching one of my videos is like sitting by a campfire with a friend and just chatting video games. And I was like, that is the absolute best compliment anyone has ever paid me about anything I've ever done. If you watch a video and that's what you come away with, then that's a home run for me. And we'll just chat about modern games and retro games and sometimes controllers or random emulator boxes because that's the stuff I like to talk about.
I think that's a good description. As somebody that's very familiar with your channel, very familiar with your videos, I would say 100% what he said is Square Pigs. That's 100%. Like being able to listen to somebody is half the battle. Being able to listen to somebody that actually knows what they're talking about, that's another battle, right? And so if you're checking those boxes, obviously you're somebody that can be subscribed to. Yeah, I think that's awesome. So going forward, obviously your subscriber count's growing. 11.3, I looked, just double checked it. 11.3 and climbing. We all are doing the grind. We're trying to grow our channels. And what's the future hold for Square Pigs? What's the goal? Are you looking to be that YouTube celebrity? Are you looking to just maybe, as Chris said, fund your hobby? What's the future hold?
Ideally, I mean, I'm not gonna blow smoke up anyone's butt here and say that this isn't something that I've fallen head over heels in love with and I want to do forever. I would love to do this full time eventually. I would love to be able to wake up in the morning and say, what video am I making today? As opposed to waking up in the morning and going to my 9 to 5 and then trying to figure out what I'm doing for a video that day.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I truly love doing. It's something I truly enjoy doing, but I'm also realistic in knowing that it's going to take time. And it's not something that I can just throw things away and say, hey, I'm a full-time content creator now. It's very much a part-time job. It's something where the revenue I make now between ad revenue, Patreon, merchandise sales, things like that, it's enough that my wife looks at it now and says, that's your part-time job and you need to dedicate time to it. It's no longer just a hobby. There's more to it than that now because my wife's an accountant.
Okay.
And when she can look at it and see numbers and she goes, you're doing something now.
Right.
That's making traction and making waves. You're not just downstairs talking into a camera for a half hour. You're actively managing your social media. You're actively generating thumbnails. You're studying editing techniques. You're actively looking at different audio settings and things like that to try to make sure that your audio is always as good as it can be. It's something where I try to keep it fun, but I'm also realistic in the fact that it's work and it's something where I love doing it and I want to keep doing it. And it's just a matter of, am I full-time next week? No. Am I full-time in 5 years? That's possibly more likely, but we'll see. So.
Well, and I'm glad that you said that because I think a lot of people think that content creation is easy. I don't think
it's very hard.
I
Very
don't
hard.
I don't think people realize how much time sometimes you put into a video or how much time you put into editing. Even something like this, doing live shows and stuff, it's not something that you just wake up one day and you're an expert at, or you're, or even as a content creator. Like, I love what you said just a little bit ago about how you're down there studying and learning techniques, and that this is the stuff people don't see content creators. Your favorite content creator didn't just wake up with 100,000 subscribers overnight. They grinded the pavement. They publicized themselves. They doing what you're doing, researching better techniques, talking with other people that can benefit your growth. You know, this is the side of content creators. This is why we do this show, right? This is hopefully to bring newfound respect. And listen, it's okay if Jay, if you want to be full time doing this, good on you. Seriously, never should a content creator be put down because that's something. And I know there's a stigma out there. If that's a goal, go for it, man. Shoot for the stars, man. Like, I think there's nothing wrong with somebody saying that. I'm glad you were completely honest with something like that, because so many people, like, they're afraid to say it because they're afraid that people are gonna, like, look down on them for it. It's like, man, if that's your goal to do this, do it.
Yep. It's something to me where it's like, if it was just a hobby, if it was just, picking up my phone and saying, all right, now we're going to talk about this, and it was 15 minutes of work and out the door, it wouldn't be worth doing. It wouldn't be worth investing myself into. But I mean, Chris said it best in the chat there. He said it's 10% content, 90% behind the scenes, and that's 100% true. I do a lot of ranking videos on my channel where I will say I'm looking at every, like, the one I did most recently was every Simpsons game and ranking it, A through S, or F through S, based on how good I think it is. And someone will look at it and they'll be like, oh, it's a 25-minute video. But what they're not seeing is the, 25 hours of gameplay capture, the editing that went into each one, the script writing, the audio editing, the re-exporting of the video when it crashed halfway through, the, it's all the stuff that goes into it. Like, people will just, it's such
the thumbnail creation.
Exactly. Thumbnail creation, writing a description, writing a title, getting my tags correctly.
That's right.
Spreading it all over social media, like, because that's always part of it as well. There's so much beyond just the press click to watch, that, a lot of people look at it as it's a joke. It's ridiculous that people are doing content creation, but this is our entertainment now. This is what most people watch for entertainment, is stuff on YouTube or stuff on Vimeo or things like that, where TikTok even, where it's just this immediate gratification. And like it or not, these are the entertainers now. We're always going to have movies. We're always going to have Hollywood. We're always going to have television shows. But content creation is as big a part of the entertainment industry now as anything. And I'm just lucky enough to talk about video games to do it.
But think about that. We always get mad at Hollywood, right, when they make these B-rated movies, right, where they're not as good, because they only took them 6 months to make it. Now these movies like Avatar, where it takes 2.5 years, or some of these other awesome movies, right? Star Wars movies that take 2 years to make, or 3. Why do you think they take that long? Right?
Yeah.
Because it makes it good. When you got a content creator that's putting out 2 videos a week, he's working on those videos all week, along with everything else he has, family, jobs, things like that, like you're saying. And you do shorts. Like, I tried doing the shorts every day with 2 videos. It just got to be too much. I had to pull way back. Maybe I'll get back to it, but that takes time, because now you're shrinking content down to a minute every day, making sure that you get that, whether you do it on one take or not. It's still right. So these are all the things that people don't see. So honing that skill, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Stuff like the shorts thing is, I started that in October, just kind of on a lark, where I was like, my friend Gary did a short every day last year, and 100%. I said, well, if Gary can do it, I can do it. Like, it's just 100% that was the entire qualifier. I was like, if Gary can do it, I can do it. That's easy. And that was a really stupid statement to make, because I struggle more making 60-second content for a short than I will making a 45-minute
No
video.
kidding. Yeah.
Oh God, shorts are the bane of my existence. I hate making shorts, but I'm at the point now where I'm like, I've done a short every day for 6 months. I gotta at least finish the year. It's
Wow.
just, yeah.
You need to be commended on that. It's 365, 366. It was a leap year this year, so you
It's
got
a
the
leap
extra.
year, so
So he
gotta
picked
do
a heck of
one
a year to do
extra.
this. No, that's awesome. Every content creator has their own thing, and I look forward to daily, pulling that open or a TikTok or whatever to see. Now I want to take the opportunity. I want to put some out there. There's going to be questions here that they're going to ask you, and I want to put those questions out to you. First one up, we have Adam Kalb. He says, "Hey Jay, let me go back to it. What is your opinion about Atari and All-in-One partnership announcement?"
So correct me if I'm wrong here, Adam. This is the Atari getting back into the arcades announcement, I think. I think if Atari is doing good, the industry is doing good. Atari, like I'm not a 2600 fan. Like it's not my thing. It was the generation before me. It's where I started, but it's not where I really started. So I don't really get into a lot of Atari stuff, but anytime Atari is doing well is a good time in the industry. And the stuff that they have been putting out recently with I think they're the Recharge games, whatever the kind of new takes on those are spectacular. Absolutely fantastic games. Okay. So Jason says the Recharge games are coming to arcades. Yes, 100% that. Give me that. That's what I want. Those Recharge games are magnificent, and to be able to play those on a full-size arcade on a stand-up,
Yeah.
oh man, chef's kiss. That's yes, please.
Well,
More
I
of
was
that.
gonna say you better clarify, because Glenn from Glenn's Retro Show in the chat room, he's gonna disown you because he's a big Atari fan.
We're allowed to have different opinions on things. I will say I have
Just
used
call him old.
Glenn's.
I always do.
Oh, I won't do that to Glenn. Glenn's not old; he's seasoned. And he makes incredible hardware. Like we got the
Truth.
preview at Cleveland to try out that light gun that he made, and I'm still blown away by that. Absolutely blown away by it.
Yeah, he did a really good job with that. I'm looking to get. I want to get 2 of them and put them on my Big Buck Hunter arcade one up, because I think the quality is just there with his gun with his light guns. So all right, let me pull this up here. Here comes the trolls. We talked about trolls. Here you go. No, I'm just kidding. Retro Rob says, Jay, longtime fan, first time caller. Favorite Stanley Cup dynasty.
Favorite Stanley Cup dynasty. I will actually say I'm not a fan of dynasties in sports. I like parity. I like seeing more teams succeed. I like seeing more teams win. I thought there was a beautiful time back in, I want to say, the mid 2000s to the early 2010s, where we got a lot of new winners. Like we got the Kings won a couple of times, the Blackhawks won a couple of times, but we had so many different victors that picked up the cup for the first time, sometimes in 40 years, sometimes for the first time ever. And I thought that was amazing. I hate the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
Excuse me. I was going to say,
I'm
all that
sorry.
matters is that the Penguins went to the Stanley Cup. It doesn't matter about anybody else.
I grew up a Bruins fan.
Oh!
Cam Neely was my favorite player. If Samuelsson destroyed his knee, I will never forgive the Pittsburgh Penguins for what they do. Now, that said, Sidney Crosby is a cheat code, and I think he is one of the greatest players of all time. I respect him. I don't like his team. So I'm not a huge fan of sports dynasties, although I guess of the last probably 20 years, my favorite is probably the Devils in the 90s. I loved Marty Brodeur, Scott Stevens.
I actually thought you were going to say the Red Wings.
In our eyes. No, I hate the Red Wings. They're an original 6 team. I can't respect them. Sorry, I can't like any 06 team other than the Bruins.
So. No, you're fine. I just when I think of dynasty, I was thinking Devils, but I was also thinking Red Wings. So you wouldn't have liked me back when I used to live in Eastern PA almost 20 years ago. I obviously rooted for the Flyers because you couldn't watch the Penguins. Like Penguins were always my second team because it was Pennsylvania when I lived there. So you had the Broad Street Bullies, right? You had Eric Lindros, John LeClaire, Mark Recchi. You had all those. Ron Hextall, that was the dynasty years, but they couldn't win a dang playoff game or finals game to save their life, like every Philadelphia team.
I always liked those Flyers teams. Like I loved the spectacle that was Eric Lindros.
Yes, except that he was a crybaby.
He was,
Yeah.
but he was a physical presence, and just to watch him play was kind of a treat. But my favorite player out of that entire Flyers run was Recchi.
Really, I thought you'd say John LeClaire.
The Bruins don't win the cup in 2011 without Mark Recchi.
Good call.
Simple as that.
Good call.
He was so important and such an incredible presence in the locker room. Just
that's why he was part of the Legion of Doom.
He was.
Yeah.
He will forever have my respect.
So it wouldn't be a question and answer segment without Game Closet. Scott coming in here, and his question says, "Okay, Jay, there's a fire at Game Dad's house. It's okay. It's just a grease fire that he caused, and it's under control. What are we going for? When we're going, what he says, where are we going for dinner since Chris burned down the place?"
Okay. Well, if we're doing local, we could do.
Oh, he burned dinner. He didn't burn the place down. He burned dinner.
Well, I'm glad he didn't burn the place down.
He didn't burn the place down.
I really like Chris's house, and his kids are cool, and his wife is great. And he's got a lot of neat stuff. So I'm glad it was just a small grease fire. But if we're doing local here in Kalamazoo, I would probably say Lake Burger Tavern. It's a place that's right around here. It's really good. Kind of a hole in the wall, great food. Amazing fries, and the burgers are great too. But if I can pivot and say breakfast, we're going to breakfast at Tiffany's, which is legit some of the best breakfast food I've ever had. And breakfast is always the number one option for me.
So I'll ask the question that he normally asks while we wait for other ones to come through. Hopefully this never happens to anybody, but it's always the question that comes up.
Mm-hmm.
Your smoke alarm's going off. You got to evacuate the house, because I won't say your house is on fire, because I would never wish that on anybody. But the smoke alarm's going off and you're evacuating your house. What do you grab? What game system? What game do you grab? Any of them?
If we're going with if we're going in this imaginary scenario,
it's imaginary. It's completely hypothetical.
My wife, my kid, my dogs are okay.
Yeah. I mean, the obvious, besides like your important documents, I'm saying all that stuff is safe. Your wife got them out. It's just you and your special toys.
I just got this Game Gear from Chris and Thor. It's really hard for me to not say I'm going to grab this one. But I'm going to grab my favorite system of all time. It's my 3DS.
Oh, very nice.
This was my everyday carry for years. I have so many fond memories of playing on the 3DS. It's my favorite system. I would definitely be grabbing my 3DS, and probably of the games, probably Shantae and the Pirate's Curse, just because that's the most valuable one I have, and I can get the other ones again.
I will say I have it queued up to watch the video where Chris is modding that Game Gear. That does look really sick. I am very jealous of you with that. If people didn't see that, you need to go watch the video. But Jay's got it in his hand. Look at that. Look how beautiful that is. It lights up. It's
so cool. I love it. Absolutely love it.
That there is a piece of work. It even has the Marble Madness color. Can't beat that. You just can't beat that. He's not allowed to say his grills because he knows I'll get it. That's what Chris says.
He's not wrong. Every time I say a Holy Grail, Chris ends up buying the damn thing for me. Either him or him and Thor or him and my wife. It magically shows up in my house eventually. It's like, come on.
I'm going
to get him back this year.
A lot of these things, when you go to conventions and stuff, you get to see some of the sides of humor that some of these guys have. It's hilarious because everybody sees you as a content creator, but when you're there, it's just like walking into a room where you know people, like friends, and you just start hanging out and messing around. And I mentioned this on the show with Chris since we were talking about him a few seconds ago. You remember we were standing there, and Brandy was making the joke about we should shave our head or something if we raised enough money or something like that. And I was like, no, I ain't doing that. And you're like, I ain't doing it. Chris is like, well, I'll do it. I don't care. It's just hair. It grows back. We're like, no. He's like, no, really, I'll do it. And we're just like, oh, okay. Like that's just, yeah.
That's just Chris. That's he absolutely would. Like it's if there's one thing I can say about him, other than
Now he wasn't too
just
nice to you, so I'm just saying.
I know, but I'm nicer. I'm nicer than him.
Oh,
If there's one thing I can say about him, besides just like the legitimate change, like huge change he's made for me, just being part of my life. I know that he is down for anything just because it's him. He is enthusiastically engaged on really anything, and it's so nice because that's not me. And we're very much a Felix and Oscar odd couple thing here because
okay.
we're very different in so many ways. But it's so nice to have that side because he's by far more of a dreamer and more of action than I am, and I'm more realistic and more grounded. And I think we balance each other out really well. And it's nice to have a friend like that in your life because so many people that I know are very reserved, kind of like me. They're a little bit quieter, a little bit more relaxed, and that ain't Chris. It's something I distinctly appreciate about him and his ability to just kind of be excited about anything that happens. So I appreciate it.
This might sound stupid, but even when we were at Cleveland, like I took I had a shirt. You guys remember the shirt that I had brought there into Pittsburgh, just as like a memento. That was my souvenir, right, for going to those two places. To have that, like I said to you guys, like, hey, would you sign it? You guys didn't like sit there and go, well, that's kind of dumb. Like, why would we do that? No, you both were like, yeah, well, like everybody was like that, right? So I think there's something to that. When you meet people, sometimes you can see that there's a difference, and I can honestly say, like, what everybody's seeing on these shows with these content creators, like, this is them. Like, I can't stress that enough. Like, this is them to a T. Jay, I mean, it's been awesome having you on here. Like, I really love the content that you've been putting out. I hope you get to that point where you can do this full time, and we all can kind of go along with the journey. It's been awesome, just kind of the little time that I've known you.
Well, thank you so much, and the feeling is mutual. I enjoy your approach to making content because it's so different than what I would do, and you're so good at it that it's fun to just watch and be like, he's so talented. That's such a creative way to do something that I wouldn't have thought of. That, and just the live setup alone, like my mind was absolutely blown watching you work in Cleveland. I was just like, that's incredible. What question did I not answer, Chris? You're saying I didn't answer a question.
I didn't. Did I miss a question? I apologize if I did. Let's go back. I don't want to. Hey, listen. You have to live.
I mean,
next
it's
to
Chris.
him.
So
it
okay
is Chris.
Answer it. It's fine.
Put it in again, because like I'm back and forth between Jay saw the behind the scenes. Trust me, he can tell you. I have a lot going on here. If I missed it, I apologize. There's a lot of buttons to push. It was confirmation. He's saying. Let me pull that up there.
Confirmation of what?
I don't know. Have him. Yeah, he has to put it in there. Are you seeing anything in the chat? Like,
I'm not. I have no idea what he's saying. He's just talking to talk at this point.
Oh, maybe this one. Taylor Woods Weichel put in here. Question for Jay. What advice would you give someone who is getting into content creation?
Be understanding that you are not going to have all the answers day one. Know that you're going to go in, you're going to make a ton of mistakes. But every mistake you make is an opportunity to learn. We fail so we can get back up. So we can dust ourselves off, so we can improve. And that should always be your goal. Every time you press record, you should be trying to be better this time than you were the last time. Make something that you're passionate about. Don't make something that you are just going to regurgitate what someone else is saying. Talk about something that matters to you. Because when you're sharing your story and it's personal and it's deep and it matters to you, that comes through on camera. If you're just saying you should play Baldur's Gate because Baldur's Gate was a great RPG and everyone should play Baldur's Gate, no one wants to watch that. I want to hear you get excited about a random cheeseburger you ate. I want to hear someone get excited about their favorite obscure ColecoVision game. Those are the things that matter. Those are the things that get content creators and people and viewers excited and will keep them coming back to see more, is you talking personally and passionately about the things you love.
Rob, that's good advice. Rob put in there that he asked a Grail question. I don't know if you ended up seeing it, but he put it here. I got it here.
Okay.
He said, Jay, with you getting the sweet Game Gear from Chris and Thor, do you have a new Grail item to look for? Chris, don't buy it.
Honestly, not yet. I didn't expect to get a Game Gear. I was honestly fully anticipating buying one at MGC. So I haven't really mentally reset yet on what my new Grail will be. Like there's always the Grails of things like, I'd like to have Earthbound. I'd like to have, a complete in-box copy of Final Fantasy III on the SNES. That stuff's kind of permanent, but those are a lot more readily attainable, I think. Or at least I can look at them and say, I don't need to readily attain that. So something like for me, like one of my goals is, like, I'm a Sega kid. So one of my goals is to have every piece of hardware that Sega has made. So eventually I'm going to pick up a Pico. Eventually I'm going to get an SG-1000, stuff like that. But as far as a Grail goes, I don't have that answer yet. I'm sorry. And not just because Chris is on and he'll buy it for me. Oh God, that's what Chris is asking about. Chris, I'm not doing Far Cry Primal. It's not going to happen.
I'll pull it up because he put it in there. I don't want to get yelled at. He says, I would watch him talk about Far Cry Primal. And what more thought about it, too? Maybe a series called He Plays, She Plays.
So that was a series that my wife and I did a couple of years ago on the channel. And our son decided to hijack it one day and say, and put up a game for vote to see what people would play. And he said Far Cry Primal. I don't do first-person shooters. My wife doesn't do first-person shooters. And of course, because he was an adorable 11-year-old at the time, everyone said, you should play Far Cry Primal. I don't want to play Far Cry Primal. I don't like it.
Scott says, I would have given you my Pico had I known.
No, it's okay. It's the Pico is like so far down the list of things I want to get because I have no interest in it really. Like,
do you have a Nomad?
I do have a Nomad. Yeah.
Okay, that was my recent Sega that I got it recapped, LCD screen in it. Stone Age Gamer, I had them do it. And I'll tell you what, I'm not a fanboy from Sega in the least bit, but it's a dang good handheld, man.
Oh, the Nomad's a thing of beauty. It really is. I got one of those last year from Gary. Now, and there's other Sega stuff too. Like a CDX would be nice to have. A JVC-XI, stuff like that would be neat. But it's not stuff I really need because I already have things that play those games otherwise. So that's kind of that point where we're at the start of the conversation where it's like curating your collection. It's neat to have, but it's not a necessity, and I'm not going to lose sleep over it if I don't get it.
Guys, we're going to take the opportunity here. We're going to wrap this up. I want to appreciate everybody that came out here, but I want to remind you, next week we have a special guest, and I want to put this challenge out to everyone. We have Dr. Scott coming on. You guys know him as Game Closet in the chat room, and he normally comes up with the crazy, if this was happening, what would you save? So, with him being in the hot seat, and Jay, you can add and contribute to this too.
Oh, I will.
You guys, the challenge is next week you come with the crazy question that he has to answer when he's in the hot seat. So next week, you don't want to miss it. We're going to have Scott from Game Closet. He's going to be joining us. it's going to be a lot of fun. I haven't talked to him in person yet. I've watched a lot of his videos, and very, very fun personality. So it's going to be it's going to be one of those shows. I think we'll have a good time. So you got to bring your A game next week.
Oh, I will have the ridiculous questions for Scott.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't done so already, I know we said this earlier, but please do. I know the challenge was in the chat room to get him to 12,000 subscribers before the end of the night. You guys can still do it. Yeah, youtube.com/squarepegs. You guys can go follow him on just about all the social medias. Just look up Jay and Square Pegs and put it together. You'll find him on the social medias. Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff. Facebook. And if you happen to be in town when he's at one of the conventions, go bother him. Go bug him. You know?
Yeah, please do.
Just go get him.
Do you understand? I did talk at the start, though. I am very socially awkward, so if I'm not like bouncing off the walls, it's not personal. I'm just weird. So
well, again, I appreciate you coming on. It's been a real pleasure. I hope everybody out there enjoyed it. And we're going to be back next week with more Creators Corner. And keep those emails coming. I really appreciate it. A lot of you guys, we're booked to the end of April. So keep them coming. We'll see you guys next time. Till next time, keep it buzzing.